Welcome to Unit 3, and in this unit, you'll learn everything you need to know for cellular energetics.
Now, the guided question I want you to keep in mind today is how does this electron transport? So transporting these electrons, how does that produce ATP? Because here I can see the electrons are moving, okay, until it reaches oxygen to form water. But how does that create ATP? If I look at the big picture flow, okay, so here I have the electrons that's being donated, and as these electrons flow through these different complexes, they lose energy. So the electrons start out with a high energy, and then as they keep on flowing, they lose energy. Now, instead of this energy being lost as heat, it is used to pump hydrogen ions through this complex to the intermembrane space, where we'll have a very high concentration of hydrogen ions. So yeah, every time these electrons move from one complex to another, they fall in energy levels and then also use that energy to pump out more hydrogen ions. This creates that electrochemical gradient or that proton gradient. And that is what ultimately drives ATP synthase to make ATP. These electrons that are flowing can only keep on flowing and flowing and flowing as long as oxygen is available. Because as long as oxygen is available, it will reduce to form water. If oxygen is not available, the electrons will not flow. Now, chemiosmosis is the hydrogen or the proton gradient then flows back down its own gradient. So these hydrogen ions want to flow back with its own gradient. So it wants to flow from this high concentration to where there is a low concentration. Now, it passes through this enzyme. This is an enzyme that we call ATP synthase. Now, as it flows through ATP synthase, it phosphorylates ATP. So here I have ADP and an inorganic phosphate, and it will catalyze that reaction to create ATP. So ATP synthesis is a coupled reaction with the diffusion of hydrogen ions or protons. Now, water is produced when it accepts those two electrons and it takes two free hydrogen ions, binds with oxygen to form water. So oxygen, because it is accepting those electrons, it is reduced. And therefore, another product of aerobic respiration is water. So we started out with glucose plus oxygen, okay? And we have released carbon dioxide during pyruvate oxidation and the citric acid cycle, and we are now releasing water because this oxygen is accepting those electrons. If oxygen is absent, so let's say there is no oxygen present, that means the electrons are not going to flow. They're all just going to chill here in the electron transport chain. They're not going to be flowing. If it's not flowing, I have less gradient being created. Okay, so if I look at the concentration gradient in the intermembrane space and in the mitochondrial matrix, they will become more equal because it's going to flow through, but no new hydrogen ions are being pumped in. And another thing that's going to happen is NADH is going to start building up because it can't get rid of those electrons. And also FADH₂ is going to start building up because it can't get rid of those electrons. So without oxygen, the entire electron transport chain stops. Proton pumping stops, ATP synthase loses its gradients, and then oxidative phosphorylation stops, meaning I'm not making ATP. If you like that lesson, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you for the next one.